The soft hum of late-evening chatter drifted across the low-lit diner. The kind of humble roadside place where the coffee never stops brewing and the neon sign flickers like it is too tired to shine. The warm lights cast a gentle glow on the formica tables, turning even chipped corners into something almost comforting. At a booth near the window, Harper Lane stood still for a moment, her breath catching in her throat as she looked at the reflection, staring back at her. Her coat was thrifted, her blouse neatly pressed but far from new, and her fingers shook slightly from a day of running between shifts. She whispered a reminder to herself, barely audible. "You promised you would show up. You keep your word, Harper." She pushed through the door, clutching her small bag like a lifeline. Tonight's date was supposed to be simple. Just conversation. Just a chance at normal. But normal was something she had not felt in a long time. As she read the number on the small napkin scribbled with booth 3, her eyes moved quickly across the room. Then she saw him. A man sat alone, shoulders slightly hunched, wearing a faded green jacket and a plain gray shirt. His hair was tousled, his beard trimmed but not styled, and beside him on the booth seat lay a canvas tote bag with 2 neatly packed lunch containers inside. He looked out of place, yet strangely gentle, as if the world had worn him down just enough to soften him. Harper took a careful breath and approached. "Hi," she said, voice warm but nervous. "You must be Oliver." "I am Harper." "Nice to meet you." The man looked up in surprise. His real name was Nicholas Hale, billionaire who had built Hale Industries into one of the most influential logistics networks on the East Coast. But tonight he wore no suit, no watch worth a car, no aura of power. Only a quiet man with tired eyes and a canvas bag. He blinked once, hesitating. Then something in Harper's sincerity disarmed him. "Hi, Harper," he answered softly. "Yes, I am Oliver." He should have corrected her. He knew that. But something about the way she held her breath as she smiled, like kindness had cost her something, made him stay in the lie for just a moment longer. She slid into the booth opposite him. "Blind dates are strange, right? I never know how to start these things." Nicholas gave a small, almost shy smile. "They are something else, that is for sure." The waitress came by, pen poised. Harper ordered the cheapest thing on the menu. Nicholas ordered nothing, murmuring that he was not hungry. When Harper's eyes drifted to the 2 lunch containers in his tote bag, she smiled politely. "Preparing meals ahead?" "That is very responsible," she said. He swallowed. Those meals were for the 2 people who mattered most in his world, his twins waiting at home with the sitter. He always brought backup meals, in case schedules shifted, in case he ended up working too late, in case he failed at something again. But he simply said something like that. They talked. Harper asked about his day. Nicholas asked about her work. She told him about juggling 2 jobs and trying to keep her mother's medical bills from drowning her. She laughed softly as she spoke, as if she was ashamed of her own exhaustion. When the check arrived, Nicholas patted the pockets of his thrifted jacket, confusion flickering across his face. In truth, his wallet was in the inner lining of the tote bag. But for a heartbeat, he froze, caught between staying in character and revealing he was not Oliver, the struggling man. He chose the character. "I seem to have misplaced my wallet," he said, his embarrassment coloring his voice perfectly, too perfectly. Harper did not think twice. "It is all right," she said, reaching for the bill with steady hands. "It happens. I can take care of it." Nicholas stared at her. People had offered him deals, positions, opportunities. But no one had simply offered him kindness without expecting anything in return. Not in years. "Thank you," he said quietly. Outside, the night air was crisp. Harper buttoned her coat, preparing to walk home. Nicholas held the canvas tote closer to his side, feeling a weight he did not expect. "Harper," he said, voice wavering with sincerity he did not intend to show. "You did not have to pay." She smiled gently. "If someone needs help, you help. That is all." And then she walked into the night. Unaware that the man she had just paid dinner for owned a company with thousands of employees, in a heart that had been locked away long before tonight, the night after the diner felt unusually silent. Inside the Hale penthouse, a place built with glass, steel, and a view meant to impress visitors. Not comfort a man who suddenly felt smaller than he ever had. Nicholas stood near the window, staring at the city lights, as if they might explain why Harper Lane's act of kindness kept playing in his mind. He had millions of decisions to make every day, yet the moment she reached for the bill, offering help without hesitation, had left him disarmed in a way stock markets and boardrooms never could. He kept hearing her voice. If someone needs help, you help. That is all. Nicholas placed the canvas tote bag on the counter. The 2 meal containers were still inside, untouched. His chest tightened. She had treated him like he was human. Not a headline, not a network opportunity, not a man with money she could climb toward. She had simply seen someone struggling and stepped in. Across town, Apora pushed open the door to her small apartment, the hinges squeaking like they were tired too. She dropped her bag on the sofa and sat heavily, rubbing her eyes. Between 2 shifts and her mother's medical paperwork waiting on the kitchen table, she barely had the strength to replay the night. Still, the thought of the man with gentle eyes who seemed embarrassed to be helped lingered in her mind. Oliver, she whispered. A stranger. A mix-up. A moment she should forget. But she could not forget the way he softened when she spoke, as if he had not been seen in a long time. In the morning, Harper buttoned her uniform and hurried to the cafe where she worked the early shift. The smell of brewed coffee clung to the air, and the steady stream of customers kept her hands busy and her thoughts occupied. Almost around noon, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She wiped her hands on her apron and answered. Hi. Harper, this is Oliver. From last night. Her breath caught. His voice was warm, quieter than she remembered, as if he was unsure whether he had the right to call. I just wanted to thank you again, he said. I know the situation was awkward. It was not awkward, she replied, though her cheeks warmed at the lie. I am just glad everything worked out. There was a pause, soft but meaningful. I was wondering, Nicholas continued, would you meet me for coffee? Just coffee. I would like to talk to you again. If that is all right, Harper hesitated. Then she heard her own voice say, yes, coffee is fine. That afternoon, in a small corner cafe tucked away from the busy streets, Harper found him already seated. Without the faded jacket and dim diner lights, he almost looked like a different man. Still simple, still humble, but more present, as if daylight revealed something he had tried to hide. Hi, she said, sliding into the seat. Hi, he echoed with a real smile this time. Thank you for coming. He talked first about the weather, then about her shifts, then about his vague mention of freelance work. He kept his words careful, offering just enough to sound believable, but never enough to break the disguise. Still, Harper noticed something in him she liked. He listened, really listened. When she spoke about her dream of opening a small craft studio one day, his eyes brightened with genuine interest, not polite curiosity. When she mentioned the weight of medical bills, he did not flinch or offer empty sympathy. He simply nodded with quiet understanding. Hours passed without either of them noticing. After they stepped outside, the late afternoon sun washed the street in soft gold. Harper hugged her coat tighter. Thank you for the coffee, she said. Thank you for agreeing to meet, Nicholas replied, hands in his pockets. And for not treating me like I was a burden. She blinked. Who said you were a burden? He lowered his gaze. Some people do not need words to say it. Her heart pulled. There was pain in that sentence. The kind that did not come from being broke, but from being unseen. Before she could respond, a gust of wind swept down the street. Nicholas took a step back, almost as if he feared he had said too much. Would you meet again? He asked quietly. Harper felt something shift in her chest, small, subtle, like a door opening a crack. Yes. I think I would. As she walked away, Nicholas remained on the sidewalk, watching her blend into the crowd. For a man who could buy anything, it was unsettling how much he feared losing the one person who had shown him kindness when he had nothing to offer. He whispered to himself, I need to see her again. And deep down, he knew this simple coffee meeting had already changed something he could not undo over the next week. Their paths crossed again and again, almost too naturally to be coincidence. Sometimes Harper wondered if she simply looked forward to hearing from him, or if the universe was gently pushing to strangers closer. One late afternoon, after her shift at the cafe, she stepped outside into a rush of cold spring air. She reached for her coat, only to hear a quiet voice behind her. "Long day?" She turned. Nicholas Still Oliver, too, stood a few feet away, hands tucked in his jacket pockets. He looked almost boyish in the way he shifted his weight, as if unsure whether he had the right to be there. Harper smiled. "You could say that. Can I walk you home?" he asked, tone soft, respectful, never demanding. For a moment she hesitated. Not because she feared him, but because she was not used to anyone wanting to share the small, ordinary parts of her day. Then she nodded. They walked side by side along the narrow sidewalk, the city humming around them. The conversation flowed easily, sometimes silly, sometimes quiet. Harper told him about the art students she admired from afar, the ones she wished she could join if life had turned out differently. Nicholas listened the way few people ever did, absorbing every word, storing them somewhere she could not see. When they reached Harper's apartment building, a cramped brick complex with paint peeling near the stairwell, she stopped, suddenly self-conscious. "This is me," she said quickly. "It is not much." But Nicholas shook his head. "It looks like home." The sincerity in his voice startled her. She pushed open the door, expecting him to say goodbye, but he offered to help carry the groceries she had picked up on the way. Inside, her tiny living room was filled with sketchbooks, jars of paintbrushes, and folded laundry. It was cluttered but warm. Real. Lived in. Nicholas set the grocery bag on the counter and looked around with quiet awe. Harper waited for the judgment she had grown, used 2 comments about the size, the lighting, the neighborhood. But instead he said, "You made this place beautiful." She laughed under her breath. "It is barely holding together. It's all beautiful things are," he replied. She glanced at him, then really looked. There was something in his eyes that did not match the man he pretended to be. A depth, a weight, a history. She felt it, even if she could not name it, as he helped her unload cans and bread. She caught him staring at a sketch taped onto the fridge. It was a charcoal drawing of an old lighthouse, weathered but standing firm. "You drew that?" he asked. "Yes," she said, slightly embarrassed. "It is silly. Just a hobby." "That is not silly," he answered. "It is powerful," his voice low, steady. "You should not hide it on a refrigerator. It belongs in a frame." Her cheeks flushed. No one had ever spoken about her art like that. Not with belief, not with reverence. After a moment, he cleared his throat. Grounding himself again in the role he played. "I should go," he said. "But would you like to get fresh air tomorrow? There's a park nearby I like. It is quiet." Harper hesitated only for a breath. "Yes, I would like that." The next day, they met at the small neighborhood park, its winding paths glowing under the soft afternoon sun. Harper brought her sketchbook. Nicholas watched her draw. Sitting beside her on the bench, as if the world had shrunk to just the space they shared. "You look peaceful when you draw," he said. "It is the only time my mind slows down," she replied. "Everything else gets so loud." "And what about now?" he asked. She paused, meeting his eyes. "Now feels." Calm. Nicholas swallowed tightly. Calm was something he had not felt in years. Not since long before he built his empire. Not since long before the world expected him to be unbreakable. They stayed until the sun dipped low. When Harper finally closed her sketchbook, Nicholas stood and offered her his hand, not out of romance, but out of gentle instinct. She took it without thinking, as they walked back toward the street. Harper felt the slow rise of something she had not let herself feel in a long time. Hope. Nicholas felt something else, a tightening ache in his chest, a fear, a truth clawing its way toward the surface. He was falling for the woman who had shown kindness to his disguise, and he whispered to himself, as the evening swallowed their silhouettes, "How long can I keep this secret from her?" The next few days unfolded in a way Harper never expected. For the first time in months, she found herself smiling at small things. A warm cup of coffee. A stranger holding the door. The soft ping of her phone lighting up with a message from Oliver. Sometimes he sent a photo of the sky changing colors over the river. Sometimes it was a simple, "Are you resting today?" No pressure. No demands. Just presence. Gentle, steady presence. One evening, after her late shift at the cafe, Harper stepped onto the quiet street and immediately saw him leaning against a lamppost. His jacket was zipped up, his hands tucked in his pockets, his breath fogging slightly in the chilly air. He straightened when he saw her. "I thought I could walk you home," he said. She smiled, exhaustion melting away. "I would like that." They walked slowly through the dim streets, passing shuttered shops and glowing windows. Nicholas asked about her day. She asked about his. He stuck to his story freelance work, small projects, nothing special. But Harper noticed that he never complained, never bragged, never centered himself. He simply existed beside her, quietly protective. As they reached her building, the power flickered inside. The lights sputtered and went dark. Harper sighed. "Transformer issues again," she muttered. "The whole block has been unstable for weeks." Nicholas looked at the dark hallway, then at her. "Do you want me to check the breakers?" "You do not have to," she said. "But, thank you." She handed him a small flashlight, embarrassed by how worn it was. He followed her into the narrow basement, stepping carefully around boxes and dusty pipes. Harper watched him kneel beside the breaker panel, sleeves pushed up, jaw tight in concentration. He checked connections with an ease that surprised her. "You seem to know what you were doing," she teased. "I learned to fix things when I had to," he answered simply. That line struck her. It felt true, painfully true. Not the polished answer of a wealthy man, but the quiet confession of someone who had been forced to adapt. The light snapped back on, humming through the building. Harper let out a breath she did not realize she had been holding. "Thank you," she said. More softly than she meant to, they stood at the bottom of the stairs for a moment. Caught in a silence that felt heavier than the darkness had been, finally he said, "I like being around you, Harper." His honesty startled her. It was gentle, not dramatic. True, not polished. She swallowed hard. "I like being around you too." He looked down, almost shy, as if that simple truth was something precious. "I do not want to rush anything," he said. "I just want to be someone you can rely on." Her heart tightened. She had spent so long carrying everything alone. Bills, shifts, fear, hope, and now, this man, this humble, thoughtful man stood in front of her offering not rescue, but presence, Oliver, she whispered. "You are already that." Nicholas felt the words hit him deeper than he expected. They were everything he wanted and everything he feared. Because she was growing closer to a man who did not exist. And the longer he held the lie, the sharper the truth would cut, before the weight crushed him. Harper stepped closer. "Would you like to come up for tea?" she asked gently. "Just tea. I could use the company." He nodded, following her upstairs. Her apartment glowed softly under the single lamp that still worked. She set water to boil while he looked at the sketchbook open on her table. A new drawing and finished of a bridge under moonlight. "That is beautiful," he murmured. She shrugged lightly. "It is just something I do when my mind is restless." He traced the air above the page without touching it. "You make the world look softer than it is." Alper's breath caught. No one had ever seen her art that way. They sat with their tea, speaking in low voices. The steam curled between them, warm and familiar. At one point Harper looked at him, eyes searching. "Oliver," she said quietly, "what are you really running from?" Nicholas froze. "I am not running," he said carefully. "I am just trying to remember who I am outside of everything expected of me." Harper nodded slowly. She did not know the truth behind the words, but somehow she understood them deeply. When he finally left that night, he paused at her door. "Good night." "Harper, good night," she whispered. As he walked down the dim hallway, Nicholas pressed his hand to his chest. The lie felt heavier, but the thought of losing her felt worse. He knew one thing for certain now. He was falling fast. The following days settled into a rhythm neither of them admitted they were craving. Harper would finish work, glance at her phone, and somehow Oliver would appear. Sometimes he walked her home. Sometimes they shared coffee at the counter of the small cafe where she worked. Sometimes they simply wandered the streets without saying much at all. But today felt different. Harper had just stepped outside the cafe after her shift when a sharp voice cut through the air. A customer was arguing with the barista at the register, raising his voice so loudly the manager flinched. Harper reacted. Before she even noticed Nicholas standing across the street, she walked straight back inside, calm but firm, stepping between the barista and the furious customer. "Sir," Harper said gently, "we can fix the order for you. You do not need to shout. This is a small place. Everyone here is just trying to do their best." Her tone was not confrontational. It was steady, kind, compassionate in a way that disarmed people before they knew why. The man blinked, taken aback, and after a moment, muttered an apology and lowered his voice. Harper smiled at him as if nothing unusual had happened. "Thank you. We will get you a fresh cup." Nicholas watched the entire scene from the doorway, a quiet ache rising in his chest. He had seen people fold under pressure, lash out for power, or hide behind wealth, but Harper had simply chosen grace. Again and again. And again, when she finally stepped outside, she startled when she saw him waiting. "Oh, Oliver, I did not know you were here." "I saw what you did," he said softly. "You handled that with so much kindness." She shrugged, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "No one gets better by being yelled at. And I know how it feels to be on the receiving end," he swallowed. There it was the quiet empathy that kept pulling him toward her. They walked in the direction of the river, letting the afternoon breeze cool the lingering tension of the cafe. Harper talked about her mother's latest appointment. The bills that continued to stack up, the weight she tried not to let crush her. But she spoke with a kind of hope that did not match her circumstances. "You carry everything alone," Nicholas murmured. She nodded. "Carrying things alone is the only thing I am good at." "That is not true." His voice broke slightly. He hoped she did not hear it. They reached the riverside path, lined with benches and dappled sunlight. Harper sat down, setting her small bag beside her. Nicholas sat close, not touching, but near enough to feel her warmth. "Oliver," she said quietly, "can I ask you something?" He braced himself. "Of course, why do you spend time with me? You could have walked away after that awkward diner night. You do not owe me anything." He stared at the water, watching sunlight ripple like liquid gold. "I spend time with you because you make the world feel gentler," he said finally. "You make me feel like myself." Harper's breath hitched. She had not expected that. He turned to face her, expression open in a way he rarely allowed. "When I am with you, I do not feel like I have to be anything," he continued. "Not impressive. Not perfect. Just real." Harper felt something inside her loosen, a tightness she had been carrying for years. She looked down at her hands, unsure what to do with them, then whispered, "I feel the same. I feel safe with you, Oliver." Nicholas closed his eyes for a moment. Safe. He had spent his entire life building walls so high that no one could climb them. Yet this woman, this ordinary, extraordinary woman, had walked straight through the gate he thought he had locked forever. He wanted to tell her the truth. Every part of him wanted to, but before he could speak, Harper stood, brushing dust from her skirt. "Let us get ice cream," she said, with a small smile. "It has been a hard day. We deserve something sweet." He laughed softly, surprised by how much he needed that moment of lightness. They walked to a small stand on the corner, sharing a single cup like two people learning how to breathe again. Harper joked about her terrible cooking. Nicholas pretended not to notice the business conference poster, with his own company's logo plastered on it behind her. The lie pressed harder, but the moment pressed harder still as they walked back toward her apartment. Harper looped her arm with his without thinking. A simple gesture. A small, warm connection. Nicholas felt it like a shock. To his system, he knew the truth was coming. He knew the reveal was inevitable. But for now, as they walked beneath the soft glow of streetlights, he allowed himself one more moment in the world where he was just Oliver. Man grateful for a kindness he had never known he needed. The next morning arrived with a gray sky and the smell of rain drifting through the city. Harper woke early, her alarm cutting into the fragile warmth of whatever dream she had been clinging to. She dressed quickly, pulled her hair into a loose tie, and hurried to the bus stop. Another double shift. Another day of pretending exhaustion did not follow her like a shadow. What she did not know was that Nicholas had been awake even earlier. He had barely slept. Replaying the moment she looped her arm through his the night before, the simplicity of it, the trust, the innocence, and the crushing weight of knowing he was protecting a lie she had never asked for. When his driver dropped him off a block away, Nicholas walked the rest of the distance to the cafe. Bundled in the same humble jacket he used for his undercover disguise, he wanted to see Harper start her day. He wanted to understand her world, not as a billionaire looking down from a penthouse, but as the man she believed him to be from across the street. He watched her unlock the cafe door, flip the lights on, and tie her apron with practiced motions. No one else noticed the way she paused for a second, pressing her hand to the small of her back, steadying herself before the storm of customers would begin. Inside, he bought a simple cup of coffee and sat near the corner where she could not easily see him. He watched her greet customers with warmth that looked effortless but clearly cost her energy she did not have. He watched her replace pastries, refill creamers, sweep spills, comfort a frustrated customer, and still managed to smile. She moved like someone carrying invisible weight heavy, constant, familiar. At one point, Harper stepped into the back room. Nicholas overheard her speaking quietly to a coworker. "Sorry, I can swap shifts," she said. "I just need the hours this week. My mother has another appointment." Her voice did not waver, but he heard the strain beneath it. A strain he recognized too well. When she returned to the counter, her smile was there again, gentle, resilient, undone only by the soft redness around her eyes. Nicholas stood abruptly, unable to watch the scene any longer without doing something, but he forced himself to stay in the role. No grand gestures. No sudden rescues. Not yet. Not while he was still hiding behind a borrowed name. That afternoon, when her break finally arrived, Harper stepped outside and nearly jumped when she saw him waiting on the sidewalk. "Oliver," she said, surprised but smiling. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to walk with you," he replied. "Just for a few minutes." She exhaled, shoulders dropping in relief. "I would like that." He walked toward a small alley garden maintained by local volunteers, nothing more than a few benches, potted plants, and string lights that glowed at night. Harper sank onto a bench as if the entire morning had drained her. "You look tired," Nicholas said gently. "I am all right," she replied, though her voice was too soft to be convincing. "It is just a lot. The bills. The shift's life." She laughed lightly, a sound that tried to hide something deeper. Nicholas leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You do not have to pretend you are fine with me." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Her eyes softened. "I am not pretending. I am just." Used to pushing through, silence settled between them, warm rather than awkward. Nicholas watched her trace a line on the bench with her fingertip, the smallest tremble in her hand. He wanted to reach over, to steady her, to tell her she deserved rest and safety and sunlight. But the man who could promise those things was not the man she thought he was. "Oliver," she asked suddenly, "do you ever feel like you are living two lives? One people see and one they never notice?" The question hit him like a blow. His throat tightened. "Every day." She looked at him, puzzled by the weight behind his answer, but did not press. "I am glad I met you," she said. "Even if it was by accident." He breathed in sharply. "I am glad too." A drop of rain landed on her sleeve, then another. Harper laughed softly and looked up at the sky. "Looks like we should run." He sprinted beneath a nearby awning just as the rain came down hard. Harper shook water from her hair, laughing in a way Nicholas wished he could bottle and keep forever. For a moment, it felt like the world was shrinking to the space where their shoulders brushed under the shelter. She looked up at him, eyes bright. "You always show up at the right time," he swallowed. the truth burning a little deeper. "Harper," he whispered. "I need to tell you something soon." Her expression changed, warm, attentive, trusting. "What is it?" she asked. But Nicholas shook his head, staring into the rain. "Not yet," he said softly, "but soon." Because he knew one thing now: the longer he stayed Oliver, the more he risked losing Harper completely. The storm eased into a fine drizzle as Harper walked home that evening. Her shoes damp, her coat clinging to her shoulders. Nicholas walked beside her, keeping quiet, sensing the weight she carried, even though she tried to hide it. Halfway down the block, Harper stopped suddenly and rubbed her temples. "Are you all right?" he asked. She nodded, but slowly. I feel like I am falling behind in everything. Work, bills, life. I am trying so hard, but nothing seems to change." Her voice cracked at the edges. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. It was the quiet ache of someone who had held everything together for too long. Nicholas felt the words strike him with the force of truth. Her world was small but heavy, and he who lived in a world of resources beyond measure was standing right beside her, pretending he had nothing. He hated himself for it. "Harper," he said gently, "you are doing more than most people ever would. You are stronger than you think." She tried to smile, but the exhaustion dimmed it. Maybe she whispered, "But sometimes I wonder if people like me ever get a break." Nicholas wanted to tell her yes. He wanted to promise that her break was coming, that he would make sure of it. But he could not promise anything without revealing the truth he had been hiding. Instead, he asked softly, "Do you want to sit for a moment?" They slipped into a small laundromat that glowed with fluorescent light. Only 2 machines were running, humming softly like a tired lullaby. Harper sank onto the plastic chair near the wall and hugged her arms around herself. Nicholas sat beside her, close enough to feel her shaking breath. After a long pause, Harper spoke again. "Oliver, do you ever think people like us are invisible? Like no one would notice if we disappeared from the world?" Nicholas felt his heart drop. Invisible. She had no idea that the man sitting next to her was followed by cameras, headlines, and boardrooms. She had no idea that people fought for seconds of his time. And she had no idea that he would have traded all that noise just to make her feel seen. He turned to her slowly. "You are not invisible," he said, voice steady, almost fierce. "Not to me." She looked at him, searching his face for something she could hold on to. "Then why do I still feel alone?" she whispered. Nicholas swallowed hard, the truth rising in his chest like a stone. "Because I am not being honest with you," he almost said, but the words stuck in his throat. Harper exhaled, weary. "I am sorry. I am not trying to dump my problems on you. You have your own life. You have your own struggles." If only she knew. "Harper," he said softly, "you can tell me anything." She nodded slowly, as if accepting a truth she was afraid to believe. They sat there for several minutes, surrounded by the quiet hum of machines, 2 people sharing the same tired air, both hiding pieces of themselves. Finally, Harper stood. "I should go home." "Thank you for sitting with me." He rose too. "Anytime." As she walked toward her building, Nicholas watched her disappear inside. Her silhouette framed by the flickering hallway light, he whispered to himself, "I cannot let her keep hurting like this." And for the first time since the lie began, he knew with absolute certainty that keeping his identity hidden was no longer protecting her. It was breaking her. The next morning, Nicholas stood in his office, his real office 40 floors above the city. For the first time in weeks, he was here not as Oliver, but as himself. Nicholas Hale, billionaire, CEO, the man who owned the very skyline Harper, walked beneath every single day. But today, the boardroom felt colder than usual. His assistant handed him a stack of files, rattling off updates on expansions, investments, and partnerships. Nicholas nodded mechanically, but his mind was nowhere near the numbers. All he could hear was Harper's voice from the laundromat. "Do you ever think people like us are invisible?" Invisible. No one in this building had ever spoken to him the way she did. No one had ever shown kindness without calculation. and no one had ever made him wish he could dismantle half his empire, to take one weight off her shoulders. He looked at the city below him. If he wanted to help her, he could. He had the power, the money, the influence, but he needed to do it in a way that did not violate her trust, a way that did not expose his lie before he could explain it. He picked up his phone. "Bring me the community project proposals," said. Within minutes, a binder was placed on his desk. He flipped through pages of programs, grants, and outreach initiatives. One paused him immediately. A new pilot program, small creative business grants for local artisans. His pulse quickened. Harper, her dream of a craft studio. Her drawings pinned to her refrigerator. The way her face lit up when she talked about creating a place where art could breathe. Nicholas closed the binder slowly. "This one," he said. "Approve the pilot. Fully funded. And make sure the application is open to individuals without degrees or business backgrounds." His assistant stared, stunned. "Sir, that program has not been reviewed yet." "It is reviewed now," Nicholas replied, voice steady. "Make it happen by the end of the week." Told himself it was not just for her. It would help many others. It was practical. It was logical. It was the kind of decision he should have been making all along. But deep inside, he knew the truth. Harper had changed him. She had changed what he cared about, and he was no longer willing to watch her struggle from the shadows. Later that afternoon, texted her, "Are you free this evening?" "I would like to see you," Harper read the message during her 10-minute break behind the cafe, her apron dusted with flour and coffee grounds. Her eyes softened even though she still felt the exhaustion of the day pressing down on her. "Yes," she replied. "I would like that." When they met near the river, Harper looked tired but hopeful. Nicholas noticed the way she hugged her coat as if bracing against more than just the wind. "I have news," he said gently. "Something that might help you." "Help me how?" "There is a new community program," he said, choosing his words carefully. "A grant for local artists. It is for people exactly like you." Her breath caught. "Me, yes," he said. "You should apply." "Truly." Harper looked at him with wide, uncertain eyes, her voice trembling. "Oliver, why does it feel like you believe in me more than I believe in myself?" Because he did. More than she knew. More than he could say. Nicholas swallowed the truth rising in his chest. "Because you deserve someone who believes in you," he said softly. And he knew the moment was coming soon when he would have to reveal exactly who he really was. 3 days later, Harper stood in front of the community center bulletin board, staring at the announcement she had already read 5 times. Creative business grant for local. Artisans' applications accepted immediately. No degree required. Her heart thudded. It felt unreal. Almost too fitting. Almost too perfect. As she reached out to touch the flyer, a shadow stretched beside her. She turned and froze. "Oliver," she whispered. But he was not wearing the worn jacket today. Not the faded shirt. Not the disguise she had come to know. He stood in a dark coat, crisp shirt, polished shoes, a posture that carried quiet influence, a presence that shifted the air around him, and his eyes, those same gentle eyes, held truth she had never imagined. "My name is not Oliver," he said softly. Her breath caught, but she could not look away. "My name is Nicholas Hale." Silence wrapped around them. Her pulse hammered. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. The company on half the delivery trucks in the city, the business conferences, the skyline buildings. "You are that Nicholas Hale?" she asked, barely audible. He nodded once, guilt softening every line of his face. "I never meant to lie," he said. "I just wanted one moment in my life where someone saw me without the name, without the money, without the noise. And then I met you." He stepped closer, careful, as if afraid she would shatter. "You paid for a stranger's dinner without hesitation. You defended people without thinking twice. You listened to me as if I mattered. You gave me something I had not felt in years, kindness without a price tag." Harper swallowed hard, emotions swirling too fast to name. "So the grant," she whispered. "Was it you?" "It was real," he said quickly. It will help many people. Not just you. But yes. I pushed it forward because I believe in you. Her eyes filled. Why? Because you are talented, he said. Because you are good. Because you deserve a life that does not crush you. And because I care for you more than I know how to explain. She looked down, hands trembling. You should have told me the truth. I know, he said, and I am sorry. But everything I felt, everything I said, that was real. She let out a shaky breath, the weight easing just enough for clarity to surface. Then show me, she whispered. Show me the truth, not the disguise. Nicholas exhaled with relief. As if she had just handed him back the air he had been missing for weeks. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small, an item she recognized instantly. The diner receipt. The one she had paid for on the night they met. Pressed flat, protected between two thin sheets of glass. I kept it, he said. Because it was the first time in a long time someone helped me without knowing who I was. Harper touched the framed receipt with trembling fingers. The memory washed over her, ordinary, simple, now transformed into something extraordinary. She looked up at him, eyes steady. Do not lie to me again, she said. Never, Nicholas promised. He held out his hand, no pressure. No expectation, only sincerity. Harper Lane, he said gently. Would you let me walk beside you? As myself? She stepped into his arms, resting her forehead against his chest. The city humming softly around them. Yes, she whispered. But only if we walk forward together. Nicholas smiled, holding her as if anchoring himself to the truth at last. And for the first time, both of them felt visible. If you want the epilogue, comment yes.